RedZoneSports.Bet, the British home of American sports.
Hi boys and girls, welcome once again to the Sports Heads in association with Red Zone Sports. I'm Simon Millen from Lindy's Sports, and with my two guests this afternoon we're going to be looking at some of the big games this weekend. Week 14 is hurtling towards us like Cameron Jordan through a Dallas backfield, and I'm lucky we've got the likes of Cecil Martin, fullback from the Philadelphia Eagles, ex-fullback. But you'd still do a great job, I'm sure. And Sam Morgan from The Verge magazine to talk us through some of the big games this week. Probably one of the biggest games of the week, big playoff implications, AFC West. We've got the Oakland Raiders at the Kansas City Chiefs. Now the Chiefs are the 4th seed at the moment, although they top the division. They're 6-6 record, same as the Oakland Raiders, and who are the 9th seed, believe it or not. It's going to be a massive game. Who've we got, chaps?
Watching you guys talk in the playbook, I think the Raiders could have a bit of an upset here, I think, with them. I think the Chiefs have you have that run of form at the start, and as soon as that bubble's well and truly been burst now, I think the Raiders could cause a bit of an upset. Although, you know, it is in Kansas, so home advantage can sometimes play in it. But for me, if I'm going to choose anyone, I'd like to, or not like to, but I potentially see the upset there with the Raiders.
Well, I've played in Kansas City, and those fans, they get loud and they are proud, and it is serious. So I'm glad you mentioned that. But this is what I think may happen. With Peters being out, being suspended, I see this team potentially banding together and doing a little bit more innately, almost in a sense where if one of your leaders got hurt. Yeah. You know, sometimes there's an elevation of everyone's effort when something like that happens. Yeah,
so it might actually be a flip. You know, we're thinking, oh, it's a terrible thing, lose your top cornerback and be suspended or whatever. But you think it's a flip side. It's a psychological thing where they're going to step up to the plate.
I just know, having played the game and been a part of situations like that, it can go either way, right? It's very much, you know, hit or miss, but and it'll be very much a defining moment for the team itself and the tough decision that Andy Reid and Brad Childress and his staff had to make. But it also will say something about the way they coach. And the way that team, because at the end of the day, they got to get on the field and play, how they band together and step up.
Well, let's have a quick look at the schedule, because we've got a graphic that we're looking at the week 14. The Raiders have obviously got the Chiefs. The Chargers have got to play the Redskins, and the Raiders have got some tough games coming up after this. They've got to play the Cowboys at home, they've got to play the Eagles on the road and the Chargers on the road. Whereas the Chiefs have got 3 home games and potentially 3 of the 4 very winnable games. I mean, they've also got they've got to play the Chargers at home, they've got to play the Dolphins at home, and then they go away to a tail-spinning Broncos. So it's for me, I mean, although we said last week, and I said last week, I think Kansas City will be struggling to make the playoffs. Actually, looking at the schedules and the way things are panning out, it wouldn't surprise me if they actually snuck in.
But it's psychologically now, like a psychological for them to actually step up. Because I say, once you all that success and everyone's going, oh, the Chiefs, they look promising. It was all that big hype about Kareem Hunt as well. Now no one's talking about Kareem Hunt. Not for those reasons. He's got he's just right under this table, and he's not there. So it's can they get past that barrier? And that is probably where the coaches prove their worth a little bit and say, you know, guys, just rally them. And the chat needs to be positive. Look, we've got winnable games. It's not like we've suddenly got all the informed teams that you got at the end. So it's psychological. Get them in and band them all together. Yes, and you might have that little bit of an edge. That now we have to step it up. And to be fair, the Raiders kind of had to do that with the Crabtree incident as well. They needed to obviously do that. So, yeah, it's going to be a good matchup. I'm still going to sit with the Raiders, but yeah, the Chiefs aren't out of it. But it is going to come down to more than one element now.
No, you're so right. And look, I got much love for my Raiders as well. And they have an interestingly similar situation in the sense that everyone has so much promise and was so excited about what the Raiders could do this year. And not that they went into the offseason with some notion and didn't work hard. They did. They just had some circumstances that put them kind of out of the mix as well as they want to be, but they're still in the mix. So on both sides of there, you know, this is very much a defining moment for both these organizations on who are they? How do they step up against adversity and in the midst of so much opportunity?
Who's going to win that division? It's not going to be Denver. There you go. There's my that's my Tupperware.
Pretty good from there.
Chargers?
I think they've probably got the sort of the momentum at the moment, and that it shows. And we talk about experience. Rivers being there, done it. He's leading that team, and in the last few weeks, again, I bring it back to momentum, because you do get that. That's with any sport. As long as you're there and thereabouts, I think you mentioned it there about the Packers. You know, went on to win the last one and then went on to win the Super Bowl. Momentum takes you, and the Chargers do it. And I think they will probably take that.
I like it. I like it.
Let's have a look at the second really big game of the week. It's the Philadelphia Eagles at the LA Rams. This is a monumental clash of two teams with the top two offences. The Rams obviously taking advantage in the AFC West, and the Eagles lead the NFC East even. Get the words out. It's like I say, the top two attacks. It's in the Coliseum, and the Eagles are coming off a bit of a beat down from Seattle last week. Can they bounce back there?
Yeah, I mean, interesting. It's at the Coliseum. You hear that name and you think it's going to be intimidating and a really scary place to go. Far from it. So you say home field advantage. I think even the Rams, they've been great, but it's not that sort of you're going to have a tough time there. The Eagles, are going to want to prove something after losing to the Seahawks as well, to sort of say, look, okay, we can mix it with the sort of inform and big teams. This is going to be a slugfest. Wentz and Goff really going for it. There's a lot of weapons on the field. I think the Eagles need to step up to prove themselves. I still don't think everyone's convinced by the Rams. I don't know why. You know, they've done a great job, but I don't think everyone's sort of like, oh yeah, the Rams are going to go on to win the Super Bowl. It's not like that. I think people were gaining that little bit of respect for the Eagles, but it was like,
it's a wake-up call, wasn't it?
Yeah, wake-up call. So I think they're going to come up with that mentality now to come and beat on the Rams, I think. And I'm going to go with the Eagles in this one.
I mean, let me just put this to you. They've had the Eagles. They've got a 10-2 record. Now they've played two teams with a winning record this year so far. They're 1-1 against them, Carolina and Seattle. How big a problem is this for a very young team? Do you think that they can step this up to the level that to the level of the hype that they've been given this season? Because I think, you know, they've obviously got a great attack, but they have played a soft schedule, and they're a very young side. How are they going to cope in the playoffs?
Well, I'm not even going to the playoffs right now, right? Because, you know, when we talk about the original question, this is a monumental game. I mean, these are two teams, you know, one is 10-2, one is 9-3, right? And they're at a completely different place than the Oakland Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs we were just talking about. And so I think there's two storylines here that's exciting. Number one, you got two quarterbacks in their second year balling out that everyone talked about coming into the draft, and they were the first two quarterbacks picked, and now they're living up to all of the hype, right? So now I think this might be the first time that they've clashed against each other. Maybe they've had one other, but not in this type of scenario where you're at the end of the season, both teams are doing good, and you're at the helm. Unbelievable storyline, right? I got to give the edge to Carson Wentz, mainly because even though he missed a few throws in the game against Seattle, there were some of them throws that were just beautiful, right? And so the other storyline is, I think the Eagles kind of got a little bit exposed last week against the Seattle Seahawks. And if you watch that game, look, the Seattle Seahawks basically controlled that entire game. Even though the Eagles had a couple moments in there where they could have made something big happen, the Seahawks controlled the game. So the Eagles are looking at the tape and saying, how did we get exposed, right? And what can we do better, right? And then, you know, the LA Rams are looking at the tape and say, how did the Seahawks slow down this power attack? And they're going to try to duplicate, because it's a copycat league. That's what the coaches do. And it's going to be interesting to see who counters what intelligence or what strategy they see is the best way to expose each other. And so both these teams have been successful. You talked about the fact that momentum is key, and both these teams have got momentum, even though the Eagles just lost, but they lost to a good team. You know, and maybe that's the best thing for them, to have lost to a good team. And look, if we want to talk about whether or not Seattle's a good team or not, then that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother story, you know. Because maybe I should call it the Seattle Russell Wilsons, because, you know, he accounts for 82% of all of their production. But in this particular game, though, the Eagles and the Rams, man, it is a clash of the Titans, and you know, I don't see the Eagles dropping two in a row.
Okay.
I just, I don't see them doing that, and I know it's going to be a tough game, but I think it's going to be more of this is going to be a coaching game as much as a player game. And very much, the players got to play on the field, right? Let's get off of our coaching. Yeah. But I believe game plans here, that's going to decide.
Okay. Let's have a look at, talking of Seattle, let's have a look at their game at Jacksonville this week. That's another massive game. Seattle chasing the Rams in the NFC West, and also Jacksonville chasing Tennessee. They're neck and neck in the AFC South. A bit of a defensive struggle by the look of it, from my liking. The Jaguars have really sort of fallen off in the respect of their run game. They can't seem to open holes for Leonard Fournette. Can they move the ball on Seattle is my biggest question mark.
Yeah, I think interestingly it's going to be about Fournette now, and you've obviously brought that up, is the fact that from that time he got the suspension, is he going to drive on and actually kick on against Seattle now? I think there's a little bit underlying issue there, because I still think that he looked far too happy on the sideline there once he was suspended, and his form has really dropped since then. So I wonder if there was something else that's actually they didn't want everyone to know. So then you lose that fear in Fournette. I think now for this game, I still think Seattle are going to kick on. I think it's go time now, and we're watching the Seahawks kick into the motion now. And as much as people say, yeah, it's all about Russell Wilson, which it is. He is the magic man. But I think he'll dance his way into another win again this week.
Yeah, it's interesting from my point of view, Cease. I mean, you look at Russell Wilson and the phenomenal play he's had this year. I mean, Seattle's offensive line is the 4th worst run blocking line in the league, and they're 26 in pass blocking as well. So it just shows you how important Wilson is to that team.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's 82% of their offensive production, including runs, is Russell Wilson. And the big thing when I look at this game is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Their defense is the best they've had since 1999. It's the best they've had in their entire franchise. And so the way they pressure, the way they bring it, and they come physical, I mean, Russell Wilson's going to have a tough time. Now, the magic man versus this great defense, and I say great, you know what I mean, with asterisks, but it's still, they're playing great defense, and they're playing with confidence. That's the main thing. I don't know if it's as great as if they're playing with confidence and they're producing on the defensive side of the ball. So it's going to be huge to see if they can get to Russell and they can slow him down.
I mean, for me, the biggest and the best pickup in free agency was obviously Calais Campbell, who's made a huge difference to Jacksonville. He seemed to be the missing piece, and for me, he's in the running for certainly defensive MVP honours, but why not full MVP honours? Because he has made a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's gutting for me being a Cardinals fan, losing him. You've seen the loss that we've had with not having him there. Interestingly, he knows Russell Wilson very well from obviously these matchups in the division. So he will be out to go and get him, and he'll remind him, you haven't got away from me this season. And I think he is up there and definitely worth mentioning for those top awards.
Excellent. Talking of defences, Baltimore, we associate them with great defence. They go and put up 44 points on Detroit last week. It seems as though Joe Flacco's certainly found his groove. They go up against Pittsburgh, who have got a big game looming against New England the following week for possibly the #1 seed in the AFC. Who have we got in this game, gentlemen? Baltimore at Pittsburgh.
I'm going to throw out there and go with the Ravens. 2 reasons. One, I just feel like that defence is going to put a little bit of pressure on Big Ben. I think a little bit more than he'll like. We know obviously he's not the most mobile. For me, watching someone like Brandon Williams obviously coming in now, he's a big scary guy for anyone, and he will let you know his presence, will make that felt. But also, I just think that the Steelers, they're not that convincing at the moment, and I think we've just touched on the Jaguars there. They showed that you can put that sort of pressure to make the mistakes, and so the 44 points that they put up wasn't all offensive points. The defense came and brought home a couple of those. So I think interesting. I'm going to go with them, and obviously the second reason, my brother's a Ravens fan. And I need to let him make sure he carries on watching this show. So I'm going to go with him on that one.
Well, I got to agree with you on the Ravens side of things, and it's not because I don't believe in the Pittsburgh Steelers. The thing about the Pittsburgh Steelers is they know when to come out and start fighting. The problem is they don't do it for 4 quarters. They do it when they want to do it. And I think with the pressure that you talked about, the Ravens being able to put on, especially with Terrell Suggs, T. Sizzle coming off that edge, it being a rivalry, and T. Sizzle wanting, Big Ben as much as possible. He's got 10 sacks this year. I think it's going to be a tough go for them. Now, the weapons for the Pittsburgh Steelers, you can't discount those, right? Sure. Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell. I mean, look, Big Ben's arm. But the losing of Shazier, we're all sending our prayers out to him.
Absolutely,
and, that he's better. I think this particular game right here, the Ravens have the edge, and I think it's going to be a great game to watch.
Yeah. Also, they're missing Juju Smith-Schuster, who was suspended for a game, which seemed to me to be a football play. Whereas you could possibly argue that Rob Gronkowski certainly wasn't a football player, and he's got a one-game suspension as well. Why is it New England always seem to get away with it? That's just a generalisation from me.
Patriots fan, Simon. Please.
I'm a Dolphins fan.
Yeah,
I'm allowed to say these things. It's all
enough.
in jest. It's all in jest.
It's interesting you say about Juju.
Yeah.
Because Martavius Bryant, it's just another chance for him actually to come in and get a few more minutes under his belt. I think for him actually to step it up and prove people wrong and really make a name for himself, because we don't know where he's going to be and whether he'll end up staying at the Steelers. We just don't know. But with Juju out of the picture, yeah, he'll obviously see a few more snaps.
But we do know Martavius is a very confident individual in his skills, right?
Yeah.
So now it's time for him, with Juju out of the picture. Well, now let's put some action behind your confidence, right? Because you're the man now. You're the man. You're being counted on.
Yeah.
So show me what you can do.
Okay. For me, Pittsburgh tend to play down to the level of the opposition, but they also raise it when it matters. And it matters this week, and it will matter next week as well, but we shall see. That's for another week.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, been an absolute pleasure again. Sam Morgan from The Verge magazine, great insight as always. Cecil Martin, again, great insight, always bringing the love. Always bringing the love.
Lovely.
We appreciate it. We appreciate it. We enjoy it every week. Thank you for watching the Sports Heads. That was for week 14's big games. Stick with us for the other shows as well. We look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
RedZoneSports.Bet, the British home of American sports.
Hi and welcome to the Sports Heads. Week 14 is upon us and we're going to look through some of the big betting games. I'm Simon Millen from Lindy's Sports and we're in the wonderful studios of RedZoneSports.Bet. I'm pleased to be joined by Warren Lambias, who is the co-founder of Red Zone Sports, and also Tom Like from InsideZone.com. Let's have a look at some of the games this week from a betting angle. We're going to start with the Minnesota Vikings at the Carolina Panthers. Now, the Panthers are 2.5-point underdogs in their own backyard. For me, Cam Newton was pretty poor against the Minnesota Blitz back in week 3 last year. He struggled to make the most of pretty clean pockets that he's getting as well. The line looks a little bit too small for me though, so I'm going to actually take Carolina. I don't know what your views are.
Well, I'm on the Vikings. I disagree. It's not unusual for me and you to disagree. We disagree all the time, Tom. But no, I agree with you. He just doesn't look himself to me, Cam. So, and I think he's going up. The Vikings, to me, are the best defence.
They set the tone every week, don't they?
Yeah, and I think going up against them, Greg Olsen may play. They're saying now, but even if he does play, he's not playing 100%. Sure. Forget the garbage time touchdown that Funchess got. I thought. I still don't think he's setting the league alight. I think that going against that defense, and I'm all aboard the Case Keenum wagon now. I'm pitching like a Kurt Warner story. I'm that sort of the second string backup, the journeyman.
Isn't it?
He's playing lights out. I want to play the Vikings, get to the Super Bowl in their own backyard. I'm buying into that dream, even though a few weeks back in week 6 or week 5 when they were playing the Redskins, I was like, Case Keenum has only been there, and now I'm a believer. So I'm all over the Panthers. It's the third road game on the trot.
You're all over the Vikings, you mean?
All over the Vikings. Thank you very much. It's the Vikings' third road trip on the trot, but they've just taken everything in their stride.
But why is that line so small, Warren? That's the thing for me. For me, Minnesota they should be a lot heavier favourites than 2.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I still think the Panthers have had some good wins, and they're a good team, and I still think you're going into someone else's backyard, and again, like I said, it's three road games on the trot for them. So what I don't get confused now, you're new to the betting show, Tom, but look, there's Simon. He's saying he thinks the line is too small, and yet he's betting the Panthers. Yep. That makes no sense. If the line's too small, you should be betting the other side.
Well, that's what the bookmakers want us. Bookmakers like you want us to do. That's why I go against the grain. Always go against the grain. Tom, who you got?
Well, I actually think the Panthers are going to win this one. I think that the Panthers' run defense is among the best in the NFL, arguably the best in the NFL. I think that they're going to shut down Latavius Murray, who's been quite effective so far, compared to what he was in Oakland. And I think that Carolina are going to force Case Keenum to try and win this game. They're going to put the ball in Keenum's hands, and I don't think he's going to turn into a pumpkin necessarily. I mean, it's post-Halloween, but I don't know. I just feel like the Panthers, they've got too many playmakers there, and I think Jonathan Stewart, Christian McCaffrey, Funches, I think they might have a big game against the Vikings and maybe make a statement in the NFC South, because we're all focusing on the Saints and the Falcons, but everyone forgets about the Panthers, and they just keep pounding.
Tom, I like you already.
You're agreeing with Simon. You're in trouble. I've got to warn you there. Okay, right.
Get him an account, quick. Yeah. Oakland Raiders at Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City are 4-point favourites. I mean, that to me is another line that's a little bit screwy.
Well, they're both 6-6, aren't they?
They are.
And I know I've not picked this game because I don't know how you can pick a team that's lost. Was it 5 on the spin? Is it the Chiefs?
And they're favourites.
Yeah. And they're 4-point favourites.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't get that. That said, it wouldn't surprise me if they didn't. This is a divisional game. They didn't bounce back against it. It's a huge rivalry.
And Peters is out as well, suspended.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was both
suspended by his own team.
It was both funny. The kid holding the thing in the crowd was funny, but also incredibly stupid. If you're a Chiefs fan, you will be absolutely. I mean,
you've let your team down. You've let your team down. Basically.
I was on the Jets last week against you, remember? So yes. I was cheering it all the way.
Yeah,
so that's it.
I mean, even if the Chiefs lose, I mean they can still make it into the playoffs because they've got those 3 home games coming up. They've got the Dolphins they've still got to play.
It's
they've
just
got
that momentum.
The Chargers they've got to play. That's a difficult game. I think really if they split this game and split the Chargers game, if they win one of those two, I think they'll beat the Dolphins. And they've got a week 17 trip to Denver, who are in tailspin anyway. Difficult game, but I still think the Chiefs are in the pole position. I just took this game purely and simply because I don't believe the line. The line should be 2-point favourites, but they're 4-point favourites. So it suggests to me.
Hang on, but again.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going against the grain.
The line should be 2 points.
He's a bookmaker speaking chap.
So he's taking the -4.
I know it's a strange decision for me, but I think I look at lines and think I make your own. If I'm a punter, I make my own lines first. It's the most sensible thing to do because you've got your own view. You let your eyes do the talking. You don't necessarily get involved with all the noise that the bookmakers are coming up with.
But again, if you're saying the line is 2. That means you think that they're 2-point favourites, and you're backing them to be 4-point favourites. So I would agree with what you said. If you had made them 4 and they were 2, I would go, yeah, absolutely. But I'm not quite sure of the logic myself. What do you think, Tom?
Well, I'm going to go against it again. I'm going to go for the Oakland Raiders. I think that the Kansas City Chiefs, they're a terrible run defense right now. And I think that the way that the Oakland line has finally come about, like it was the last couple of years, and beast mode looks like his old self. I mean, he absolutely gashed the Giants last week. And I don't trust this Kansas City team. If they get up big against Oakland, can they put the game away? Can Kareem Hunt finally start producing? I don't see it. And I think Derek Carr, the loss of Marcus Peters, he'll likely exploit that. It's kind of they pick on the people in the back end there for Kansas City. For me, I think Oakland has to be the favourites. I'm surprised that the Chiefs are a 4-point favourite there.
Tough.
See, now that's sensible logic. See, Simon, he thinks that the line is.
That's why I'm here, and you're the expert.
Yeah, well, no one calls me an expert, believe me.
Let's argue on the next game, shall we?
Yep, go for it.
Which we're going to do. Philadelphia Eagles, 2.5-point dogs at the Los Angeles Rams.
We're not arguing. I think I'm the same as you. You're Eagles, aren't you?
I am, yeah.
I'm Eagles as well.
Oh, I thought you'd be on the Rams.
No. I'm Eagles. I think last week. Bear with me on this. I think they outplayed Seattle in large parts of the game. I think they made over 400 yards offense, and part of the fumble on the goal line that would have taken it to 10-10, and the momentum would have been completely different in that game. And the Rams have the worst yards per carry defense in the league, and they're going against the 3rd best rushing offense. So.
Fair point.
And the last point that I'd make.
But then they've made those stats on the back of a very soft schedule.
Yeah, well, the thing that the boys, the clever guys, that's Dharmesh Pamar and Steve Bellmore, my business partner in the other room, were making to me is that Goff has struggled when he's faced with a front four bringing pressure on him, and look what happens against the Vikings when they played the Vikings. So he's playing a very, very similar defense. So
Okay, I think if the Rams win, 1 or 2 against, either they win this or they win Seattle, I think they'll win the West. Tom, what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, I'm going to have to back the Rams here. I mean, obviously the Eagles, you think, will they bounce back after that disappointing loss to Seattle? But for me, I think it has to be the Rams. I think Jared Goff's got too many weapons to play with there. And I think finally the Eagles' defense will finally catch up with them. The injuries, I mean, sorry. They lost Jason Peters, left tackle, and Vaitai came in, he's underperformed. And they also lost Jordan Hicks, I believe, the middle linebacker, who's great in coverage. So, when you've got someone
That's a bigger loss. It's a more significant loss than people are making it out.
It is, yeah. A lot of people forget about this, that injuries are part and parcel of an NFL season, but the Eagles, they've had some pretty brutal ones there, and I don't know, I just fancy
might be
Aaron Donald and
another West Coast trip.
Exactly, yeah. It might be too much. I know they're staying out there this week, but I just think the Rams are going to have too much for the Eagles this week, and it could be back-to-back losses for the high-flying Eagles. Okay.
Washington Redskins are 6.5-point dogs as they go to the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers have won 3 in a row and 6 of 8. They're on a bit of a roll. You're on the Chargers, aren't you? I'm going with the Skins. I'm
on the Skins as well. That worries me more than anything. I made this pick.
This is worrying.
I made this pick, and then the traders in the other room were like, "What? Why are you doing that?" So I should point out.
Let's justify this.
Yeah, that's it. I think the Skins, despite the fact they turned the ball over 6 times last week at Dallas, which virtually gave Dallas the game. I like the Skins as a road team. They're an indifferent team. They're Jekyll and Hyde. I think they go away to places where you think they're going to lose, like Seattle, like the Rams, and they put in a performance. And I still think, even with all their injuries, I still think Kirk Cousins is a great quarterback. He's playing for a job, wherever that's going to be. Maybe it's going to be in Washington, maybe it's not. And despite that loss last week, there's a team there still with something to play for. So that's why I like them. And although the Chargers D is really good, but I like the Skins plus the points.
I just take the points. I'll take the point. I think the Chargers could sneak it, but I just question their kicking game again. It was a bit flaky again last week. This is the problem with the Chargers. They've lost a couple of close games early season with the kicking game. Yeah. What are your thoughts on
I think they struggle in red zone. In the red zone to execute. I mean, you look at how many times against the Browns and this is the Browns. They got down to the red zone and they didn't convert. You know what I mean? And the Browns covered. Finally the Browns covered in a bet. So
Tom?
I think it's probably about right. I think the Washington Redskins and the LA Chargers, they're two of the most unpredictable teams in the NFL. You never know what you're going to get each week with these teams. They seem to turn up or they don't turn up. But I think the Redskins, what they've been with their offensive line, it's been musical chairs there all season. They haven't been able to keep Kirk Cousins upright. And when you're talking about the Chargers, you've got a very talented secondary and then 2 amazing edge rushers coming off the edge. And like Washington, like when the Redskins played Dallas last week, when the Cowboys started bringing pressure, disrupting Cousins, they couldn't get the ball moving. So for me, I think they probably got right here with the Skins being about 6-point underdogs. Yeah,
there's one of our traders back there. I say back there, but he's out the door around there. He thinks the Chargers can go to the Super Bowl. He's all aboard the Chargers train. You can always trust the trader, sees value in a bet, and then he piles on. So I'll probably be.
He's in row Z up there. So
no, he's backed some good winners. So that's
okay. Well, Chargers, interesting. Traders on the Chargers.
I disagree with him. I can't see them going to the cold East Coast.
They could be a team that could disrupt a few. That's the
absolutely.
question with it. You've got a franchise quarterback that's been there and done it and an experience, and that counts for a lot in the playoffs. Let's have a look at the Dallas Cowboys at the New York Football Giants. Dallas are 4-point favourites.
I am all aboard the Giants. Yeah. Let me tell you, Ben McAdoo is gone. Eli's back in. Suddenly, all the negativity that is around that stadium, around Rutherford, they're going to be all aboard. They want to beat the Cowboys at the best of times. I heard Giants fans saying they didn't care. They wanted the Cowboys to beat them because they wanted rid of McAdoo. McAdoo's gone. That team will play for Eli Manning. Everybody, to a man, thought it was the wrong decision to drop him. This game is like their Super Bowl.
Yeah. I think from the start of the season, they've lost 3 very close games. They've gone 0-5, and then the injuries hit. So it's a real, much as we're lamenting or not lamenting the fact that Ben McAdoo's gone, and
no one's lamenting the fact that McAdoo's gone.
But they have been pretty ravaged by injuries. They've got no wide receivers, they've got no running game, they haven't got an offensive line to speak of. It's unravelled pretty quickly, and I don't think, certainly Jerry Reese didn't see this coming.
I would say it unravelled quickly. I feel that from week 1 it's been a death of a 1,000 slashes or whatever you want to call it.
But before they went, they were 0-2 and they'd lost three close games.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seemed to spiral out of control very, very quickly, and then the injuries struck after that, after week 5.
Yeah.
So, I've gone with the Cowboys simply because they're still in playoff contention. It's going to take a monumental effort now for them to get anywhere near the playoffs, but they are still playing hard. Tom, I don't know what your thoughts on this one.
Well, I think the Cowboys will win, but I don't think they're going to win by 4. I think that might be a little bit too... I mean, Steve Spagnuolo, he did interview for the job 2 years ago and Mackie got it, and for him, this is the biggest 4 games of his career. He is auditioning for the 2018 New York Giants head coaching football job, and I think the players will want to play for him, they want to play for Eli, and jobs are on the line at the end of the day, and players have to perform. They have the 2nd pick in the draft, but this is not the 2nd worst team in the NFL by a stretch of imagination. Most people thought this team would be a Super Bowl team, and I think if they finally show up, I think the Cowboys will win, but just not by 4.
See, I'm not sure the Cowboys will win because if something's not right on the Cowboys either. They got 38 points last year, last week, but as I said, it was on 6 turnovers. Prescott threw for 100 yards. Do you know what I mean? It's that offense without Zeke Elliott in it as well. That's not clicking the way it should do, and so I think momentum will be with New York. Strangely, even though they've not won a game, I think it will be with them because that crowd will want to win that game for Eli, and he will get a great reception. And I've always said this about Eli Manning: he has great bounce back ability. He is one of those. He can be absolute garbage for a whole season and go and win a Super Bowl. Do you know what I mean? And that's what he is. That's the man he is. Whether you like him or not, he's got quite a thick skin.
I think it's a bit harsh to say he can be absolute garbage because I've never seen him be an absolute garbage.
Oh, I don't know.
He's an elite
I've backed
quarterback.
him a few times. Yeah,
that's a pocket talking. Let's have a look at the last game because this one's yours. So the pressure's on you here. The 49ers.
Well, I picked the 49ers last week. I think against your Bears pick as well. I think
yes,
I picked
they scraped past me. On field goals. So much for Jimmy Garoppolo. They won on field goals.
They won on field goals. Yes, but
Texans 3.5 favourites.
3-point favourites. Yeah. I still think that Garoppolo, he marshalled the team well. There was a new momentum. I thought he played well, even though they won on field goals. I think that when you put Tom Savage against Garoppolo, you're going, hang on, Tom Savage looked. He started to look better, but he still looked awful. That throw on 4th and 19 at the end into double coverage that cost them the game. I mean, he was chasing the game at that point anyway.
Well, but it would help if the left tackle decided not to have 3 false start penalties.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
But I just think that suddenly you talk about momentum, you talk about next season, like we're talking about New York. They're all suddenly now, San Francisco are in next season mode. All those players are on next season mode.
Okay.
You've got in Shanahan, you've got a coach that's going to be there for a long while.
Yes, he is.
And you've got maybe a starting quarterback that he came in first game, threw a touchdown when they couldn't get a touchdown, in the garbage time. He has led that team last week to a victory. I see him going again. I think there's a real momentum behind San Francisco. So even though they've had a terrible season, there's positivity around the place.
Okay. Tom?
I'm going to have to agree there. I think Garoppolo, they saw that it was light and day between CJ Beathard and Garoppolo came in. Shanahan finally has a quarterback with a good skill set. He's been around the NFL for a couple of years now. He's learned under Brady, under Josh McDaniels. And people forget that Carlos Hyde is a very good running back. He seems to be someone who seems to slip around the league. Most people know about him, but on his day, he's maybe a top 10.
Doesn't have many on his days, though, does he?
That's the problem.
I think they're going to be drafting a running back very high.
I think they will be, but he's a good change of pace back, and I think they've got a lot of good young players on the defense. I mean, Reuben Foster's been great at linebacker. They've got the 2 twin towers in the defensive line. So.
Okay, great. So you're going with
That's for San Francisco.
You're going with the points.
This man speaks sense. He understands that when he disagrees with a line to bet the other way. It's good.
Great stuff. Tom Like from InsideZone.com. Thank you very much. Had a pleasure with your company again this week. And Warren Lambias, co-founder of Red Zone Sports.
He never said pleasure for my company. Did you notice that? It's outrageous, ladies and gentlemen.
It's a pleasure to be in your studio. Then.
Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure to talk to a bookmaker, especially when they want your money. I'm Simon Millen from Lindy's Sports. We are the Sports Heads. We hope you enjoyed the betting show, and we shall see you again soon. Good luck with your bets. Bye-bye.
American football and my hot cheerleaders. It'll make you feel like a Yank. RedZoneSports.Bet, the British home of American sports.